Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dive into the sources so you get the essential knowledge. Today, we're tackling Johannes Kepler. He's this fascinating figure, sort of straddling the old mystical world and the new scientific age.
Absolutely. Kepler, born 1571, died 1630. He's right at the heart of the 17th century scientific revolution. A German polymath, really. Astronomer, mathematician.
Astrologers too, right. And natural philosopher, even wrote about music.
All of those, yeah. Most people, if they know him, it's for the laws of planetary motion.
Those famous three laws. They feel so fundamental now, but back then,
Yeah.
totally groundbreaking. They really set the stage for Newton's gravity theory later on.
They did, but what often gets missed, I think, is just how broad his thinking was. It wasn't just planets.
Yeah, I heard something surprising, like people call him the father of science fiction.
That's right. For his novel, Somnium, it's the story about a trip to the moon. It gives you a real glimpse into this mind that just wouldn't stay in one box.
Okay, so that's our mission today. Let's try and unpack Kepler, understand this mix of deep faith, money problems, pure mathematical genius, and all the personal stuff that somehow pushed him to, well, rewrite the rules of the cosmos.
Sounds good. And maybe a good place to start is his motivation. He was deeply religious, a Lutheran. He saw his work as fundamentally theological.
Which is pretty amazing when you think about it. He had physical challenges, didn't he? From smallpox as a kid.
He did. Bad eyesight, crippled hands, not exactly ideal for staring through telescopes, even the early ones. But his mathematical ability was just phenomenal right from the start.
He honed that at university.
Tübingen.
Yep, University of Tübingen, studied theology, but also astronomy, became a convinced Copernican there, defending the sun-centered model. And for him, this wasn't just abstract math. He genuinely believed God created the universe using an understandable geometric plan, a plan humans could figure out through reason.
So his science was like figuring out God's blueprint. Exactly. He famously described it as thinking God's thoughts after him. This whole mindset led directly to his first big work, Mysterium Cosmographicum, back in 1596. Apparently, it came from a sort of flash of insight he had in Graz.
The cosmic mystery. What's the core idea there?
Well, he was looking for structure, not just calculations. He had this really ingenious idea that the spacing of the 6 known planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, could be explained by nesting the 5 Platonic solids.
The perfect shapes, like the cube tetrahedron.
Those ones, yeah. The cube, tetrahedron, octahedron, dodecahedron, icosahedron. He imagined them fitting perfectly inside spheres, creating the gaps between the planets.
Wow, a geometric model of the solar system.
Precisely. Now, we know today the model itself was, well, flawed. It didn't quite match the real measurement.
So why was it still important, if it was wrong?
Because it marked a huge shift in thinking. Before Kepler, models like Ptolemy's or even early Copernicus were often just tools to predict where planets would be. They didn't necessarily have to be physically real.
Just mathematically convenient.
Right. Kepler was demanding more. He insisted the math must reflect physical reality, God's actual design. So even though Mysterium failed in its specifics, it was a critical step. It pushed for a physically meaningful Copernican system, clearing out some of the old Ptolemaic baggage.
But a theory, even a physical one, needs good data to back it up. And Kepler knew his data wasn't quite good enough.
Which brings us to Prague, 1600. And Tycho Brahe, a really pivotal moment.
Yeah, talk about a relationship. Kepler desperately needed Tycho's observations, right? They were the best in the world.
By far, unprecedented accuracy. But Tycho, well, he was notoriously protective of his data. He gave Kepler bits and pieces, mainly focusing him on Mars, but never the whole treasure chest. It was a tense situation. 2 brilliant minds, massive egos.
Circling each other. Then Tycho dies suddenly in 1601.
And just like that, Kepler becomes imperial mathematician. He finally gets his hands on all of Tycho's logs. His main job was finishing the Rudolphine tables, these new astronomical tables based on Tycho's data. But the real scientific drama came from Mars.
The Mars problem, its orbit just wouldn't behave.
Exactly. It refused to fit a perfect circle, no matter how Kepler crunched the numbers. And crucially, Kepler wasn't just fitting curves mathematically anymore. He started applying physics. He was inspired by William Gilbert's work on magnetism.
Gilbert thought the Earth was a big magnet, right?
Right. Kepler adapted that, proposing the sun had some kind of physical force, like magnetism maybe, that pushed the planets around. And importantly, this force got weaker the further a planet was from the sun.
Okay, so a physical cause for motion. And that led him somewhere.
Directly to his second law, the aerial law. He figured this out relatively early, around late 1602. It says planets sweep out equal areas in equal times.
Meaning they speed up when they're closer to the sun and slow down when they're further away.
Precisely. It perfectly matched his physical idea of the sun's weakening influence, but the actual shape of the orbit. That was the killer. He spent years on it. Famously tried, over 40 different circular or oval-like shapes?
40 tries. That's dedication or obsession.
Maybe both. Think about the conflict for him. He believed in God's perfect geometry, which surely meant circles. But Tycho's data, which he trusted implicitly, kept saying no, not a circle.
So accepting the ellipse,
Yeah.
that must have been huge. Intellectually, maybe even spiritually.
Absolutely massive. It was basically heresy. Choosing messy, observed reality, this imperfect ellipse over the expected, divinely perfect circle. It was prioritizing the data. When he finally nailed the first law in late 1604, that planets move in ellipses with the sun at one focus, he wasn't just tweaking a model. He was changing cosmology itself.
He basically killed the idea of planetary orbs, didn't he? Those old crystalline spheres.
Yes, replaced them with the idea of an orbit. A path determined by physical forces. It wasn't just geometry anymore, it was celestial physics. And believe me, that scared a lot of his contemporaries.
And he kept using data to challenge old ideas, like with the supernova.
Supernova 1604, yeah. He observed it carefully, looked for parallax, that apparent shift in position when you view something from different spots on Earth.
And found none.
Found none, which meant it had to be incredibly far away, way out beyond the planets, in the realm of the stars. This flew directly in the face of the old Aristotelian idea that the heavens beyond the moon were perfect and unchanging. Kepler was showing the cosmos was dynamic, maybe even, dare I say it, imperfect, and ruled by physics.
Okay, so we've got the revolutionary astronomer, but you mentioned he was a polymath. Let's talk optics. Father of modern optics.
That's a title he sometimes gets, and for good reason. His book, Astronomia Pars Optica from 1604, is foundational. He laid out the inverse square law for light intensity, how light fades with distance. Super important.
And he figured out how the eye works.
He did. He correctly realized the eye's lens projects an inverted image onto the retina. That was a major step in understanding vision.
Then Galileo comes along with his telescope.
And Kepler immediately jumps on it, not just using it, but figuring out the theory behind it. He wrote Dioptrice in 1611.
What was new there?
He explained the theory of different lens types, double convex, double concave. And based on that, he actually designed a better telescope, the Keplerian telescope. It used two convex lenses, gave a wider view, more magnification, superior to Galileo's initial design, really.
Amazing. Okay, let's shift gears again. Mathematics, but like really practical math. Wine barrels.
Ah, yes. Nova stereometria doliorum veneriorum, the new stereometry of wine barrels, 1615. Sounds mundane, but it came from a real problem. How do you accurately measure the volume of these weirdly shaped wine casks?
Like they weren't perfect cylinders.
Not at all. So Kepler developed methods to calculate volumes of solids generated by rotating curves. This was basically early integral calculus. In German-speaking countries, Simpson's rule for approximating integrals is sometimes still called Kepler's rule, Kepler's barrel rule.
Wow, and the snowflake thing. That sounds charming.
It is. His little 1611 pamphlet, Strina Pseudonive Sexangula, a New Year's gift of hexagonal snow. He was just curious, why are snowflakes always six-sided?
Good question. Did he figure it out?
Not fully, but pondering it led him to think about packing spheres efficiently. How do you stack cannonballs, or oranges, to fit the most in a space? This led him to pose the famous Kepler conjecture about the densest possible sphere packing.
The one that took centuries to prove.
That's the one. Only formally proven with computer assistance in, 2014 or 2017? It just shows how his mind saw deep geometric problems in everything.
It's just wild, this level of intellectual output, while his personal life sounds like, well, a total mess. Constant upheaval.
It really was. Financial insecurity is a constant theme. Being imperial mathematician sounds grand, but payment was often late or partial. He had to cast horoscopes for Emperor Rudolph II and other patrons just to make ends meet.
That astrology connection is tricky. Was it just a job, or did he actually believe in it?
It was complicated. He clearly despised the common fatalistic fortune-telling aspect. You mentioned his evil-smelling dung comment from Tertius Interveniens in 1610.
Yeah, so he thought it was rubbish.
The popular stuff, yes. But he didn't completely reject the idea that celestial bodies could influence earthly events or human temperament. He spent time trying to reformulate astrology, put it on a more rational or philosophical basis, trying to separate what he saw as a potential cosmic connection from the superstitious nonsense. It was this awkward balancing act, partly intellectual, partly just needing the income.
And on top of money worries, serious religious conflict followed him.
Constantly. He was a Lutheran but got kicked out of Graz by the Catholic authorities during the Counter-Reformation. Later, in Linz, his own Lutheran church denied him communion.
Why? What was the issue there?
Because he had theological disagreements, particularly about the Eucharist, and crucially, he insisted that Calvinists should be accepted as fellow Christians, as brothers in Christ. He just didn't fit neatly into any religious box, which made life difficult.
And then the witchcraft accusation against his mother? That sounds harrowing.
Extremely. Katharina Goldiemann was accused in her old age. It was a serious, dangerous charge. Some think the rumors might have been fueled by his manuscript for Somnium, the moon trip story, floating around maybe suggesting forbidden knowledge.
So he had to stop his work and defend her.
He did. He poured enormous effort into managing her legal defense for several years. Thankfully, she was eventually acquitted. But imagine the stress, the distraction from his real work. It just highlights the turbulent times he lived in, pushing scientific boundaries while fighting medieval superstition literally in his own family.
Yet somehow, through all that chaos, he produces another masterpiece near the end.
Harmonies Mundi, the Harmony of the Worlds, in 1619. This was him coming full circle, back to that initial quest for God's beautiful, harmonious plan.
And this is where the third law comes in.
That's right. The third law is in Harmonies Mundi. It's the one that connects a planet's orbital period, how long it takes to go around the sun, to its average distance from the sun. He found a precise mathematical relationship. P squared equals A cubed, essentially. For him, these ratios were linked to musical intervals. He felt he'd finally found the music of the spheres.
Such a poetic culmination.
Yeah.
But how was all this received at the time? Were these laws instantly hailed as breakthroughs?
Oh, not at all. Far from it, actually. The idea of physical forces driving planets, and especially those ugly ellipses, was really controversial. It went against centuries of thinking about perfect heavens and perfect circles.
Even Galileo didn't buy it?
Galileo basically ignored Kepler's ellipses. He stuck with circles. Many astronomers resisted the mix of physics and astronomy. It seemed messy, unphilosophical.
So how did Kepler's ideas eventually win out?
Slowly. His epitome of Copernican astronomy, which was more like a textbook explaining his system, became quite influential through the mid-17th century, maybe the 1630s to 1650s. It gradually got people used to thinking in terms of ellipses and physical causes.
And then Newton enters the picture.
And that's the final piece. Isaac Newton, in his Principia Mathematica in 1687, showed that his single law of universal gravitation could mathematically derive all three of Kepler's laws. That was the ultimate validation.
So Newton built directly on Kepler's foundation.
Absolutely. Newton turned Kepler's descriptive laws into a predictive, universal physical theory. And Kepler's legacy is cemented now, isn't it? We have the Kepler supernova, the Kepler space telescope, searching for exoplanets, that sphere-packing conjecture. His impact is still felt.
So wrapping this up, Kepler was driven by this deep, almost mystical belief that he was uncovering God's hidden geometric harmony in the cosmos. Music, math, the planet, it was all connected for him.
He's searching for harmony. That was the ultimate goal.
And what's just so striking, I think, is that this profoundly religious aesthetic quest, this search for divine beauty, led him directly to discover these purely physical laws, the ellipses, the varying speeds, the very things that became the bedrock of modern, purely physical celestial mechanics.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can a deeply held conviction, something that isn't strictly scientific in our modern sense, sometimes be the essential spark, the engine, needed to drive a truly revolutionary scientific leap? Something for you to think about.